It's all good. What are the 3 most important games the Wisconsin Badgers football team will play this year? Plus, if we rank the last 2 classes, who are our favorite offensive line prospects between the 24 and the 25 classes? We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Badger fans, what's good? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Got Justin, you got Ryan. Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be, I think, unless I do some random thing, the last show from the barn. It's almost packed up. So for all of you who have been here for the entirety of it, thank you. This will be it. We're packed up. We're heading to Wisconsin, heading to Shell Lake. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Create an account, use code Locked On for $20 off your purchase. Justin, we've been here from the jump.
No kidding, yeah. There in Cuba and
banana rats.
Yeah.
Terrifying. This is a good one. This is a good bookend, honestly, having Justin on this for kind of the last, because we were obviously at the beginning too, and
end of an era.
Yeah, all throughout the middle. And now I'm going to be close. We're actually going to be able to get together and do stuff, which is kind of badass. But this is a good one to go out on. 3 most important games in 2024. So not the toughest, not the hardest, not the ones you think are just what are the 3 most important Badger games in the 2024 season? I'll just kick my list off. We'll go back and forth. Number 3 for me is Minnesota. Like I know some people don't care as much about it. Like Minnesota always matters to me, so it's going to be on this list no matter what. I don't have it higher because I just don't think that significance of the game in the standings is going to be that good. I think we might mollywop Minnesota. But it's always important to me. I have it at number 3.
These lists are going to prove how differently we view things for this team.
And we haven't discussed the lists, so we're going this cold.
Yeah, my first one's USC.
I started at 3.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying. So my number 3 is USC.
Oh, got you.
It's the game that will get potentially jumpstart if we're going to have a really good season. That I think that they have to win. Like that's a game that is really important to where this season is going to head. I think we pretty much agree that Alabama is not likely to be a win. So this is the game where you prove that you've taken a step in the offseason and gives them an opportunity to kind of show that this is working, on a bigger stage. So to me, it's a huge one. What? Go ahead.
No, sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's what I was going to say. It's just on a bigger stage. This is where your proving ground game for me.
I was just going to say also a Big Ten game, right? Mm-hmm. Like you could look at Bama because it's the first
game of the season for Big Ten.
But Bama's not a Big Ten game. Like USC just matters more than Bama. I agree there. Who's your number 2 then? We'll kick it to you on this one.
Penn State. Another game that if they win this one, like you potentially have, if you're Wisconsin, you may be looking at a dark horse playoff type team if you win that game. Like if you're that good, where if you're taking care of business on your other games, that one's a huge deal. So to me, that's the one. And it's also kind of get a monkey off your back game in the Big Ten, because for whatever reason, we can't seem to beat Penn State, even though I don't think they've really been better than us in a lot of the games that we've lost to them. It's just, we shoot ourselves in the foot at one point or the other. And it's like, these teams are pretty equal. It's just who does less stupid things in the game.
We've had a couple of gross losses to them, like the Big Ten championship game, the Mertz game where he threw the pick in the end zone to, was it Brisker or whoever it was?
That game should have been a blowout.
Like I hate losing to them sucks, because you're right. It never feels like they completely outclass us. It's not like Ohio State, right? But yeah, that's a good one. Number 2, I have at Iowa. It's interesting where we're going on different ones here. I think so. The interesting thing to me with Iowa, right? You're coming off that Penn State game. It's in Kinnick. This is a team that has been roughly on our tier. I think these are games you have to win. I guess it's interesting. I'm more looking at games. I'm like, you got to win these games. So you got to win the Iowa game. You got to win the Minnesota game, right? Because the other ones are tougher. So you got to hit your layups.
So to agree with you on this, that's my number 1.
Okay.
Iowa's the game that they have to win in order for me to be a successful season. because I expect to beat Rutgers. I expect to beat Minnesota. I expect to beat Northwestern this year. If you're Luke Fickell, those are games that you should win. Iowa is a game that I look at. I'm like, this game's kind of a coin flip. It's at their home place. If they take a step offensively, that could be a really hard game for us.
Mm-hmm.
So and that is the one that is probably like, because that's the game that we're looking at 8-4 with. Like, we could lose all the other games, and that's the one that we have to have if we're going to have a successful season.
Yep, and I looked at it much the same way. That's like the linchpin game, because you can lose the other ones, but if you beat these teams and you beat Iowa, you're going to have a really successful season. You're going to take that step forward. And it's, again, that road game's always tough. So I'm going Iowa. Number one, I've got at USC. So I'm right there with you on USC. I just think because it's the start of the Big Ten season, because you're welcoming this team in. And then here's the thing with USC, that you're coming off a bye, so you have time to prepare. They're coming off Michigan. Like, that's a pretty good setup for you. And if you beat USC, here's the other part why I think this game is so freaking important. Second part, I have two reasons. I just thought of another one. You can shut those arrogant fans up, because USC, man, they're like, oh, we're going to run the Big Ten and blah, 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 and West Coast speed and the quarterback factory. Like, okay.
How great would it be if we Nebraska'd them as like a first game? We win 48-17 to start off their time in the Big Ten.
Well, they do play Michigan before, so we wouldn't actually start them off. But yes, like, it would be amazing. But here's the other part with it. All right, you beat USC, and then you go into a stretch of Purdue, Rutgers, Northwestern. Right, so you beat USC, because I think you're probably going to lose to Bama. You don't want to lose 2 in a row. Mm-hmm. So I think USC is critical because it's early season. It leads into a weaker stretch of the Big Ten. You're coming off that Bama game. You don't want to lose your first 2 tough games, because it really knocks you down from a momentum standpoint for the rest of the season if your first 2 games you get beat. So I think that's just an enormous game, man, and that's number 1 on my list.
Yep,
and you have
100% agree. It's a game that I think Wisconsin has to have that game if they're going to be. If they truly want to be considered a power this year, they're going to have to get it done in that game.
Agreed. Penn State was my honorable mention. Like, that was the one I went back and forth. Penn State, Minnesota. My tiebreaker for that, because the Penn State one's super important. Hey, we're going to be there. Yeah. Like, that alone makes that game more important.
This is true. I just expect us to beat the crap out of Minnesota this year. So that's more like, I think we're going to older brother them and just be like, why are you hitting yourself? It feels like that type of game for us.
Yeah. I say this, though. I get much sadder when we lose to Minnesota than Penn State.
I agree with that.
The importance of it.
You can at least somewhat respect the level of talent that's on the field for Penn State. I never go into the game with Minnesota and feel like they out-talented us. Ever.
Was there anybody else, any other teams that almost made your list at Nebraska, Oregon home?
No, because I still, like, I think Nebraska's a year away. Like, I just don't see them being a team that is quite there yet that we should expect to truly challenge us. Like, I realize it's going to be late in the season, but I don't expect Raiola to be a guy that this year can, like, put the team on his back and win games for them. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily buy that their defense is going to be as good as what it was. I think we're going to be improved on both sides of the ball. So I think that's going to be a game. Like, I think we're going to win by 10. Now when I say that, it doesn't mean that I expect us to dominate the game, but I think it's going to be like a game where we're up 7 most of the game and then we salt it away with a field goal late or something like that.
Yeah. They'll play with some toughness because that's who he is. But you and I are in agreement. Iowa, USC makes both of our lists. Two of the 2 biggest games of the year probably for us in terms of the importance of it. Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to rank this is going to be a really good one because, again, Justin and I haven't seen each other's list. We both really like the 24 and the 25 offensive line classes, so it's hard to leave anybody off this list. But who are our 5 favorite prospects from those 2? We're going to see where Justin and I disagree. If you're in the comments, let us know where you disagree as well. Today's episode brought to you by our good friends over at eBay Motors, something we've talked about a lot. I've been in car accidents. Justin, what's the worst car accident you've ever been in?
I got hit head on by a guy who decided to reach for some CDs on his floor, and he was turning left. Bright guy. Thankfully, it was in town and not on like a highway. So he was doing 30. I was doing about 30. But I learned how much having a seatbelt on still sucks, even if you're wearing it, because I could definitely feel it in the chest that day.
I love dating ourselves too. Some dude's reaching for CDs. I'm instantly going back to like 2001, 1996, something like that. If you get in a Carson, because some dude's reaching for his NSYNC CD or whatever it is, Spice Girls, DMX, Juvenile, whatever it is.
Spice Girls and DMX.
Listen, I had both. I had both.
We're getting some insight into Ryan's video or music catalog.
The original Spice Girls, and I had like every DMX CD. So it was
big fan of Two Become One.
Dude, listen, they were great. I will not stand for slander.
I mean, I will acknowledge the fact that I didn't hate the videos.
There you go. Everyone likes them for different reasons.
Yeah.
If you do get in that accident, go over to eBay Motors. The right parts, the right fit, the right prices. You can replace everything from that wreck Justin had. 122 million parts. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers. Exclusions do apply, but they are the ultimate place to get every auto part you could possibly need. All right, Justin, let's get into this one. I'm excited for this one because we both love both of these offensive line classes. These are really, really good classes. We're going to rank them 5 to 1. Who are our favorite 5? I started off the games list. So you started off the offensive line list. Who's your number 5 guy out of these two classes? Really quick, we're also including Hardy Watts. I know he hasn't landed with the Badgers yet, but he might.
Just to throw it in Michigan's face.
And he very well might. Like, Wisconsin is very much in that battle. We're going to have to see, but we are including him for the purposes of this list.
Number 5 for me, Logan Powell. I think he's a guy who projects really well in the interior, and I think they badly need that. That's the place that I'm most concerned with depth on this team. And I think he's a high-end athlete. I think he's a legitimate 4-star type guy that can provide some athleticism on the interior for them. And as a guy that, at the very least, is a very productive 2-deep guy.
Yeah, I love him. Number 5, I got big Mike Roski.
Okay.
Michael Roski. I love that dude. And I went back and forth, and we'll talk honorable mentions later and maybe why some of the guys we really didn't make the list. This is just a huge human being, right? We talked to Logan Powell. Mm-hmm. He said, that's a man. And Logan Powell's a big freaking dude. And he's like, no, like, Roski's a man. Like, that is an enormous guy. I think a culmination of things have happened here that have kept him a little under the radar, like nationally. Injured last year, plays in Wisconsin, not even at a powerhouse Wisconsin school. If he had been in healthy and in a bigger school where more people had seen him with his size and his movement skills, and just he's wired like a maniac offensive lineman. Again, I've said it before, but my favorite quote from him is I asked him like what it's like to play offensive line. What do you like about it? And he said, I like to make the little people fly through the air. So, nothing else I need. He's my number 5 on this list.
All right, number 4 for me, Ryan Corey. He's got a ton of upside in the interior. And I'm going to be a little heavy on the interior guys here early, but I really like him. I think the athleticism popped to me last year when we watched the film on him. I think he's a very versatile guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays center. I think he can play guard, and I think he can play at an elite level at either one of those spots if that's where they end up putting him.
Why do you think he's so underranked? Because I love Corey. I
don't know. Like there are certain times where you and I will look at people that I'm super frustrated that it doesn't seem like other people get the same perspective that we have. And I look at his film and I'm like, this guy moves incredibly well laterally. He looks like he's got really good feet and he's athletic in general. Like he just moves well as an athlete. And I'm like, I don't know. He just doesn't have the weight on him that they'd like to see for somebody to be a 4-star, but he was a no-brainer to me as a 4-star last year. And for whatever reason, he never got touched.
Yeah. I love, to your point, I love the movement skills on the inside. He understands angles. He flies off the ball. He actually is that rare kind of offensive lineman in the high school level that plays with some leverage too. Like everyone's got stuff to clean up, but like he gets it. You can tell he understands what he's trying to do and gets to the second level really well, like really, really well from the interior. I love him. I don't know if he's going to make my list though. Number 4, I got Logan Powell for all the same reasons you said. The thing with Logan Powell, and there's a couple guys on my list that have this, I am so confident that he's going to at least hit, maybe not his ceiling, but he's going to at least hit as a really good player because he's already carrying the weight. He plays really well. He's from a good school. He's been coached. He's physical. He's nasty. I think he has a high floor, and then I think he has a really good shot of like being that guy at a minimum. So I love him. Logan Powell's my number 4.
Okay. Number 3 for me, Hardy Watts. And I know the grimace there a little bit like a smirk. I know that you don't agree with me on this because you know who my top two guys are. I know you do.
I do.
I really like Hardy Watts. I think technically he's a guy who's very sound. I like him as an athlete. I'm not as high on him athletically as my top two guys, but I think that his ceiling with him, or even his floor, like I think you're looking at a guy who's going to be at worst a good starter at the college level. And if he hits, he's going to be a all conference type, interior guy at guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got Emerson at 3. So we're close. Listen, we are close on this. I love Emerson. It's more of the only caveat with Emerson Mandel to me, because the only reason I don't have him a little bit higher, because I love the get off of the line of scrimmage with him
is that you're wrong?
It could be. I have him third in a group that I love, right? Yeah. I love the physical skills, right? There's no doubting that. You don't even need to really. There's some things that, and we're amateur film watchers, but we watch a lot of it at this point, and I think that we have a pretty good feel for what we look for. You don't even need to be an amateur film watcher to watch Emerson Mandel and see him pop, right? Like you don't need to watch a lot of film.
The athleticism when you watch him is like, this guy's just an athlete. Like for guys his size, they should not move the way that he can move. He could do so many things well if he chose to do it. He's just 6'4" guys or 6'5", whatever he is. I think he's right in that range, that are close to 300 pounds should not be as light on their feet as he is. They should not have the physicality that he has with control. Like, he's a very controlled athlete for how athletic he is and how physical he is in his film.
Mm-hmm. I agree. He feels like a guy who could be an elite discus thrower, a guy that can be an elite shot putter, a guy that can be elite wrestler, elite power forward. He's just crazy athletic and strong and quick. Fires off the line of scrimmage like, a hippopotamus chasing somebody. It's incredible. Love him. My only two caveats, and these are minor, these are quibbling, right? Because, listen, these are all 4-star players we're at this point now. So we're quibbling. Very minor quibbles. I would have liked to see him play just a little bit better competition, just to see it, right? Just to see it hold up. And I think he's got some technique refinement to do because he didn't have to do it. I love Emerson Mandel, though. I feel like you're grilling me. I got him third. I love the kid.
I see. For me, I think that if he hits his ceiling, he's a first-round pick. Like he legitimately. There are very few offensive linemen I've seen that move like he moves. And that's why I look at him and I'm like, he's probably going to be in the 2 deep this year. He'll find a way to get in there because he's just a better athlete than the guys that are going to be around him. And he's got the weight on him already. He looks like he's 300 pounds.
Yeah. He's excellent.
He's going to get into guys because he's going to be quicker than most of the guys that are going to be across from him, even at Wisconsin. And that's going to be a problem for people to keep him off. But yeah, he's a guy who the ceiling for me is just off the charts. Like I've been high on him since the first time I watched his film. And I was like, oh, we're stealing this guy from Minnesota. How good could he be? And then I watched the film, I'm like, oh my God, this guy, why is this guy not getting like Bama offers and stuff like that? Like he's that quality of recruit.
I disagree with nothing you just said. Yeah, I love him. I think he could be a dominant guard for us. In a spot we haven't had. Like, what's the last real dominant guard we've had? Like a guy that you just mauls people.
Zeitler?
Like Zeitler? Yeah, the same.
It's been a long time, but he was. And they're similar athletes, to be clear. Zeitler was one of those guys that was very, very light on his feet and moved super well athletically, and that we haven't had a lot with that. We've had a lot of plotting guys that were good enough athletes, but they weren't guys that you looked at and you're like, wow, man, this guy moves so well on the field. And that's typically those are the guys that get projected as All-Americans, before. And Wisconsin gets a few of those guys, but they're normally media guys or whatever. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't trust the media when it comes to those type of lists. We've seen in the draft stock with most of the guys that they're not. Zeitler was one of those guys that was very well thought of to the point where was he first round or was he early second?
He was the first. He was a late first, I believe. But yeah, he was a stud. And I feel like this guy's that type of upside as well. So I disagree with nothing you're saying. I went to Hardy Watts just because I think he is so incredibly safe. Like his film is already technically sound. He understands a lot of the same things with Powell, but he feels a little more refined and stronger in some ways, a little more athletic. Like, I think you can make an argument for Watts to play tackle. I think he's a better guard. I think that's where he's going to obviously be, but he's that type of athlete playing guard. He's a power guy. if we can pull him from Michigan, and maybe this show's going to air, not going to air for a couple of days. So it'd be amazing by the time this airs that when is he committing? Does he have a timeline?
July 1st. So,
July 1st?
So this will probably come out after he's decided what he's going to. So
I really
congrats everybody. We got Hardy Watts. No, I'm just kidding. There's no insight there. Yeah.
There's no insight there. I love him. I got him number 2 on my list because he feels like almost outside of our number 1 guy, like the safest person in this 2-year span at the offensive line spot. And then obviously number 1, I think we both have Kevin Heywood.
Yeah. You're talking about a top. If he hits, he's a top 10 pick. Like he has that type of ceiling. So and the fact that he is already in the 2 deep, and I think he would be in the 2 deep even if they had depth on this roster, because I think he's that good already. Like it sounds like the coaching staff is just wowed by the fact that he's as ready to play as he is. You normally do not have tackles that are this ready to play this early on.
Not as a true freshman. That's incredible. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. That's Joe Thomas type stuff. And then he is not Joe Thomas, but it's really hard to find a true freshman that can come in and play meaningful minutes. Year one.
Other than Bama, are there schools really out there that have guys who come in as true freshmen and normally start? It doesn't happen very often.
No, I mean,
not play well.
But Frederick did for us, but not at tackle, right? Like,
no, that's what I'm saying. Interior guys are easier to do just because it's tighter. Like, there's less that they are required to do in some ways than a guy on the edge who's kind of there on his own.
And the staff is everybody I've talked to, Justin, you've talked to people, like, they are blown away. Like, he is so beyond what a true freshman should be. Be excited. Legitimately, this isn't us blowing smoke. Be excited. Kevin Heywood has a major future here.
We've talked about guys who, like I said, we need to get some depth for next year. There are 2 players out of that class that I feel are guys who, if they had to start next year, I think would be starting because of their talent level and not because we're forced to play them. And that's Mandel and Heywood. I think that they are capable of being that good that even if you bring in depth pieces, they just may be better than those guys to get on the field.
Heywood, absolutely. Mandel, the technique's just going to have to come along, and that goes at different paces.
You can hide him a little bit on the interior, but yeah, he's going to have to get his pass sets down.
Agreed. All right, we're going to take a quick break there. Come back. I have a couple quick questions that I have not prepared Justin for. These are my favorite segments of the day. But a quick break for our friends of the show over at Game Time. Game Time, the number 1 source for all your ticket buying needs. We're going to do that for the Penn State game. Go over to Game Time. We're going to find the best tickets at the lowest prices, or maybe we'll just find the highest prices and make Rajiv pay. He's not on the show.
He's not on.
Love it. But either way, we're going to find those best tickets over at Game Time. And if you're going to the theater, if you're trying to watch some comedy, trying performing arts, wherever it is, whatever you're trying to do, they have all the tickets at Game Time, the best prices, last-minute deals. You don't have to worry about logistics. It's fast, simple, easy. Good prices. Picture the seats before you sit down. Snag the best tickets without the stress with Game Time. Right now, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. All right, Justin, you ready for a couple comments here?
All right, let's do this.
These are not get yous, but some interesting comments that came up that I thought are kind of interesting. This one's from WD Badgers. All we hear are Ches and Tywee or Dupree Jones. People have forgotten about Yak and Acre. Are those guys complete? Where are those guys at for you in this ecosystem? Because this is a good question.
So here's the deal. No matter what you think of those 2 guys, they're in some ways they're very similar to Ches and Tywee, which is that I don't think either one of them's got star quality. And that's no knock on them. Like, they're solid players at the college level, but you need to get Dupree Jones and Ituka ready for next year because you need one of them to be your bell cow. And I think those guys, their ceiling is, you're talking about guys that as a freshman could be like 1,000+ yard running backs. Like, they're capable of being that type of difference maker for Wisconsin. So it's not that I don't think there's some ability with those guys. It's just I don't think that they provide the same level of ceiling with them. And Wisconsin is looking to get the most dynamic players on the field this year. Like, I'm a little concerned when we talk about Ches and Tywee. I think they're very solid. But if Wisconsin wants to hit their ceiling this year in terms of I know we've joked about 11-1 or whatever. if they're going to do that, they're going to need somebody to be an absolute star. And I think that the most likely person of that is probably Jones to come in. Like somehow he just blows up in fall camp and takes it running. And he's a guy who comes in and averages like 6 yards a carry as a freshman.
Yeah, I absolutely love Jones. I think Jones is the future bell cow here. And Dupree's sprinkled in various spots. I absolutely love Jones. But let me ask you this. Week 1, God forbid, but it is football. Ches or Tyree gets hurt, right? Who in week 1, who's the number 2 back?
I think it's probably Yak or Aker.
I think it's Yak, probably. I think he gives you a little more juice in Aker.
He's going to be assignment sound, and that's what they're going to want.
Yeah, and he's got the thing with Yakimelli, man, is he's not unathletic. He's probably a 4.55 guy. He's good size. He can catch the ball. He just doesn't have like the burst, right? He doesn't have that 0 to 10 burst that breaks through the
burst. And I don't think he quite has the vision that guys like Dupree and Jones have, where it's like there's just some things aren't teachable for running backs. Those guys were 4-star players because they have some of that innate ability to just sense things. And Dupree has a ton of it when you watch him get to the edge, like a guy who just understands where there's going to be space here. Like it's like almost a sixth sense that certain running backs have, where they just understand. I think there's like the instincts that they have are just better than the regular traditional backs. I think Yakimelli will get you what the play is blocked for. Those two guys are guys that can go out there and make something happen that you're not expecting.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. Next one here we got. This is from Jay Wardy. Linebacker is crazy deep, but I think cornerback is crazy shallow. We are one Ricardo injury from scary time. Now, I disagree with that. So I kind of disagree with this, but I think the perspective is interesting, right? Because let's say Rico does again, or something happens there. We love Rico. I think Nizer Forkern, they talked about him as having a big step up year, but you really are counting on some pieces that are either new in transfers or young guys. Like Jonas DeClone is a good player. DeClone is a good player, but I don't think you're feeling great necessarily. I think his point here is you're probably not feeling great if it's Forkern and DeClone as your top 2 corners. If something were to happen to Rico,
I think you go from having a guy like a potential lockdown duo to having a solid duo, if that's the case. And I think like my perspective on this is the room is deeper than you think in terms of the floor, because I don't like we go like 6 guys deep where I'm like, these guys will be fine. Like I'm not worried about the guys being put out there and just getting destroyed. I mean, we may have game like if we're playing Oregon, we might struggle against them. But everyone else, I'm kind of like they'd be fine. They're not going to be athletically. They have the tools. They're good athletes. They'll be okay out there.
I actually think the young guys are capable of playing this year. Like so, corner doesn't stress me out as much. I think
Xavier Lucas, if we had to put him in for whatever reason, I feel like in a normal like Paul Chris room, he's probably in the 2 deep. Mm-hmm. This room they've just done a really good job of filling that room quickly.
Yeah, cornerback too. Cornerback doesn't stress me out as much as maybe it does Jawardi here, but I do think. Listen, I understand the point. We don't have a ton of proven commodity there. I think it's probably the better way to put it.
You're going by like recruiting pedigree more so than like on-field experience.
Yep, but the recruiting pedigree has gotten better, right? So you have to feel better about it. I think that's it. I think those were the comments I had. Justin, I think we're going to wrap it up from the barn for I think the last time.
Oh man, it's the end of an era again. Like I said, now you're gonna have to find a new place. You're gonna build like a blanket fort or something at the new house.
Man, I don't know what is there. We haven't been there yet. So, I mean, we had a virtual tour, but
oh no, you're walking me like, what did we buy? I mean, these lead pipes in the kitchen. These are gonna work well.
I have no idea where I'm gonna put an office, where I'm gonna record from. So it is what it is. But Justin, as always, man, I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. On Wisconsin, and we will talk later.